everyone, and welcome to Two Player Quest. I help you on your quest to find the best two-player board games for you. In today's video, we have Mansions of Madness, the second edition by Fantasy Flight Games. In Mansions of Madness, you play as a group of investigators, investigating the mysteries all around the world. But beware of the horrors that await you in this Lovecraftian dungeon crawl. But is two investigators enough, or do you need more? Well, let's investigate! Mansions of Madness is a game for 1 to 5 players that plays in an hour to 6+ hours, all depending on the scenario you play. There are easier scenarios that take about an hour, there are harder scenarios that take 6+ hours, but you can choose which scenario you want to play. Now, it's at a 2.7 on Board Game Geek for complexity, so it's an easy to medium game, and that's for the basics of the game. As I said, there's easier scenarios and there's harder scenarios. The harder scenarios require some actual thinking, so puzzling, riddles, stuff like that, and the easier scenarios do not. So it also depends on what scenario you're playing, how complex the game is, I would say. And it is a medium luck game. So there's a lot of dice rolls in this game for combat, for lore checks, for a lot of things. So if the dice aren't in your favour, you won't be winning this game. And they also throw some decoys in, so actions that are frankly pretty much useless and won't help continue the game, and there is a bit of a time limit. So it all depends on how the game goes. So medium luck. This is what the table can start to look like at the start of a game. On the left hand side we have all the cards, we have the tablet to set up with the characters in a moment, and all the tokens and characters we have in this separate box. Now, we start with a new game and start by selecting characters. In this case, we're playing with Caroline Fern and Daryl Simmons. On your character, you can see how much HP and sanity you have, sanity and stamina, and your character's ability and your character's statistics. Then you gather your starting items from the piles. Then the game gives you an introduction to what the scenario is. Then the game prompts you to grab certain tiles, in this case the entry hall, which is this one, and the bathroom, which I'm still searching for. The game will tell you where to place your investigators on the board and where to place certain tokens. Once you've set up your board, you can see on the screen what you can interact with. Now, these are interactions. If it has that symbol, it means you have to spend an action on it. Here you can try to open a door, and this symbol means that once someone is in that spot, you can press that so they can see what is there. Now, on your turn, you have 2 actions. One of those actions can be moving, in which case you can move 2 spots. So we could move from the start here 1, 2 to that area to discover what it says here. Other things you can do are opening a door. In this case, we could try to open this one while this player is standing there, or interacting with an interaction token. One player must do all their actions before another player can do their actions. Once both players have done their actions, you go to the mythos phase. But first, I will do some of the actions. My first player has decided to walk that way and reveal another room, which reveals the hall end and adds it to the map, where you once again add new things to the board. The other player decides to interact with that token, so on the screen you go to that token and press search. Then you get a piece of text telling you what to do. In this case, you gain a clue token. Sometimes there can be a puzzle that you find and you need to solve the puzzle on the thing, and other times you need to roll checks. For that, you have these dice. These dice have the elder sign, or this star, as a success, this loop as the possible success. If you hand in a clue token, which have the same symbol as this loop, you can turn that into a success. There are also other ways to do this. And it has failures with nothing. The amount of dice you roll depends on the check. So in this case, if this player were to roll an agility check, they would roll 4 dice and have 2 possible successes if they spend the clue tokens. damage and sanity are always taken face up unless specifically told to take them face down. So then you would read the text it says. In this case, you become stunned and discard the card. Stunned and other abilities have their own cards in that stack over there. Once a player reaches their max in either sanity or stamina, they would gain a negative. For stamina, you become wounded, and for sanity, you draw an insanity card. If a player would go through their supply twice, so in this case, if this player would gain 12 stamina or 16 sanity, the player would die and the game would end. Now, after the players have all done their turns, you go to the Mythos phase, in which the game will tell you what happens. It is possible that monsters spawn. In that case, you would take the monster from the bag and place it on the board. For example, this ghoul could be spawned. You would place it where the game tells you to place it. In this case, I will put it there. And then you can interact with and fight with the monster by using this one here. The game ends when the scenario tells you that you have either won or lost. Usually you have an objective, and once you reach that objective, you have won. If a player were to die, or the objective was not reached at a certain point in time, you lose the game. Learning how to play Mansions of Madness is quite simple. I would say it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to learn the basics, and then you can get started. I would recommend Mansions of Madness to people who like dungeon delvers, but don't necessarily want to have a sort of dedicated DM, as I'm going to call it, because you don't need that. You have the app. There are games like some versions of Descent in which you basically need to have someone who is a separate DM to do all the monster movements, to do all the things that they decide to do. In this game, the app does that for you. So it's really good to make an evening out of playing this with your friends. So if you like the Lovecraftian theme of Arkham Horror, stuff like that, then I would most definitely recommend this game. I personally really like Mansions of Madness. My husband, unfortunately, does not. I like the adventure you can go on, the solving of the mysteries, the interaction with the other players, everything that this game brings, and it's useful that it's all with the app. That is also something that's sort of a negative to me, which is that you need the app. So we have a tablet that was partially basically bought to also be able to play this game without having a laptop here. So it was annoying that it was necessary, but I still really like this game. Luckily, I have friends that also like to play this game, so this game does come to the table from time to time. Now, this is the sort of game in which I would say you need more of the game to make it more interesting. So the base game comes with an X amount of scenarios, but every expansion brings new monsters, brings new scenarios, and brings new characters. So the game expansions really add to the game, but it's a shame that you have to sort of start with a small set and then you always have to buy new expansions. But with the expansions, it does certainly make it a lot more fun. And they do sometimes come out with new things if you have the expansions. So we recently found a new scenario that we hadn't seen before, but because we had one of the expansions, we could play it. So great. Now, with 2 players, we don't think this is a good fit. You sort of want the more players, you want the chaos, you want the interaction you have with the other players, and you want the ability to specialize as a character. So, oh, my character specializes in lore, so I can do that. And my character specializes in fighting, so I can do that. You do sort of miss that if you're only playing with 2 characters. And this isn't the sort of game that you could play 2 characters each with. I would say this is an excellent game for more players. Personally, I think 3 to 4 players is best when it comes to time, but you can very easily play this with 5 and it can still be very fun. It just takes a bit longer. As I said before, I like it more with more players because of the interactions you have with each other. The board, the game gets a bit harder, it gives you more enemies, and it just gives more variation, which is something I really enjoy. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching our review of Mansions of Madness. If you have any comments, feedback, or suggestions, put them in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you next time on 2 Player Quest.